Welcome. My name is Evan Olasco. This is the first episode of Screen Reel. I'm not too crazy about the name. At first, I wanted to call it Popcorn Cinema, but that was taken. So then I had to scramble for another name. But yeah, so let's just jump right in. This is only the first episode. Hopefully, I can make it to the end of the year, but I'm really doing this only for myself. I'm not expecting to get a huge audience. Part of the reason why I decided to start this podcast is because I sort of have a New Year's resolution to watch 50 movies, 50 new upcoming movies in the year of 2023. So I feel like creating a podcast where I talk about movies will sort of maybe help me stay accountable. I'll, see what works, what doesn't work, how the show flows better. So each week, I'm planning on dropping these on Mondays. Each week, I will think of a topic to talk about. The original idea was for it to just be solely reviewing movies that are coming out. But I'll be real with you guys. I'm not going to watch every movie that comes out. I'm not going to force myself to go to the movie theater to watch a movie that I don't want to watch and then have to talk about how much I didn't want to watch it or how much I didn't like it. Hopefully I can keep this mainly positive and just overall genuine. So then I decided I'll just think of a topic to talk about each episode, and then if there is a movie or movies that I watched that weekend, then I will talk about them. In this case, for this episode, I watched M3GAN and A Man Called Otto. Spoiler alert, I did like both of them. And also, generally, I will be talking about these movies in spoiler depth, but for this episode, I'll make one exception for A Man Called Otto because the movie doesn't actually get a wider release until January 13th, 2023, but they were playing it close by, so I went to go watch it. But the main topic is just going to be my top 10 anticipated movies of 2023. That will come afterwards because I do want to talk about these two movies that I watched this weekend. Before I jump into M3GAN and A Man Called Otto, I just wanted to talk about the box office weekend for this past weekend, the domestic box office to be exact. So the top 5 movies this weekend was Avatar: The Way of Water at number 1 with 45 million, M3GAN at number 2 with 30.2 million, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish with 13.1 million, A Man Called Otto with 4.2 million, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever at 3.4 million. Avatar is still the biggest movie out there. There isn't anything that big out right now. I'd say the biggest thing is probably M3GAN, which we can see because of that $30.2 million opening weekend. The movie was only made on like a $12 million budget, so they've almost tripled their production budget in the first weekend. There has been sort of a horror film streak. Like just recently we had Barbarian and Smile. We also had Halloween Ends, but we don't want to talk about that. We don't talk about Halloween Ends. So yeah, I mean, both of those movies also made a ton of money as well. And then Puss in Boots came in third. I really don't care about the Puss in Boots franchise. I know it's a spinoff of Shrek, but I didn't go watch it. At number 4 came A Man Called Otto. I did just watch that. I thought it was really good. It came at 4.2 million. It obviously isn't a huge blockbuster. And then in 5th came Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's been in theaters for like almost 3 months now. So the fact that it's still in the top 5 is cool. But when you put it in context, there isn't much out except for Avatar, which might hit that $2 billion mark. So far, it's made $1.7 billion. So it only needs $300 million left to hit that $2 billion mark. And I think it probably will hit that number in the next couple of weeks. There's nothing really coming out for the next couple of weeks. The next movie that I'm personally looking forward to is Knock at the Cabin with Dave Bautista, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. So, anyways, enough of that. Let me get into my thoughts on M3GAN and A Man Called Otto. So, I saw M3GAN yesterday, and the theater was packed. And it looks like maybe a lot of theaters were packed because it had a great opening weekend. Now, I will say, while I did like the movie, it was probably my worst experience in a movie theater in a long time. Or it may be even the worst, because there was this like group of maybe 10 to 12 people that were occupying the first two rows. So they were all in the front, and they were just talking so loud throughout the entire thing. They kept getting up out of their seats and leaving and then coming back. They kept getting up and switching seats. And then like you could see their silhouettes on the screen, because obviously the room is dark and the screen is bright, and if somebody walks by, you can see their silhouette. And they were constantly getting up and switching seats and just talking to each other. At one point, like, security had to come in, and they told them to be quiet, and they did tone it down for the rest of the film. And it was a packed theater, so there was a lot of people there that, you know, took time out of their day, drove to the movie theater, bought tickets, bought popcorn, drinks, and other food, only for this group of people to kind of ruin the whole thing. I don't experience that a lot when going to the movie theater. 99% of the time that I go, I have a pretty good experience. But yeah, in general, look, I am not a horror guy. I'm not really into the horror genre. But I gotta say, lately, like the movies I just brought up, Barbarian and Smile, I did like those films. I especially really, really liked Barbarian. Like, the more I think about that movie, the more I like it. Smile, I did like it, but not as much as most people. It just felt very generic in some parts. But M3GAN, it is marketed as a horror movie, but to me, it didn't feel like a horror movie. It just felt more of like a thriller slash science fiction movie, which I really dug. I was really into that, because now I am going to go into spoilers in this. So if you haven't seen it, then you can click away. If you've seen it, then you can stay. Or if you don't care about spoilers, then you can stay. Basically, the story follows this woman who has to sort of adopt her niece because her parents died, but she doesn't really know how to interact with this child. So she makes this robot, M3GAN, which stands for Model 3 Generative Android. She makes this like artificial intelligent doll, this like 4-foot doll that is basically like a human, and is supposed to be there for this little girl. But, you know, if you've seen the trailers, the robot goes homicidal, and that's pretty much the story. I mean, there's a lot of, like, I really liked seeing the doll, like, move, interact, and the doll looked real, too. So the special effects, keep in mind, the budget of this movie was like $12 million. So it was pretty impressive. And one thing I like about the movie is that once the climax comes to a close, the movie just ends. You know, we don't get this, you know, ending that just drags. It sort of just ends as soon as the conclusion happens. And then we get this tease at the very end that maybe M3GAN moved her, I guess, quote unquote, subconscious into this other robot that the main character, I'm forgetting what her name was, but that she had. So they did leave the door open to make a second one. There are a lot of like cliche generic characters, like the boss character is just a very cliche and generic boss. But the story mainly focuses on the woman and the child and M3GAN. There was this over the top scene with the bully kid that I thought, you know, maybe they could have pulled it back a bit, but because it didn't really fit with the tone of the rest of the movie. Like, there was a lot of like jokes in there. There was a lot of humor in there, like subtle humor. But the kid seemed kind of out of place because it was just very over the top. It felt like an 80s bully injected into this modern 2023 film. I don't know if that was just me, but I was happy when the kid died. That's all I'm going to say about that. But overall, I really like the film, and I'd like to see a sequel and possibly, hopefully, see more if it's good. So the other movie that I saw, that I literally just saw a couple hours ago, was A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks. He's the main character. I'm not going to get too much into spoilers here. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here. So I'm just going to give my general thoughts just because it hasn't gotten a wide release yet. It doesn't actually get a wide release until this coming Friday, January 13th. I sort of went into the movie kind of cold. I only saw the trailer once a couple of weeks ago. It didn't really pique my interest that much, but I still wanted to go watch it just because Tom Hanks is in it. But the plot is pretty simple. There's nothing really new. There's the grumpy old man that sort of learns to appreciate life more, and you know, just the story of the grumpy old man that actually has a heart behind that hard shell. So this movie is actually a remake of a Swedish film called A Man Called Ove, and that movie was actually based on a book. So this is a remake of a movie that's based on a book. And look, I thought it was a really solid film. It was really good. I was entertained throughout. There are these flashback scenes where we sort of get more of a backstory on the Tom Hanks character. And to me, those were my favorite scenes because, there's just this juxtaposition between how the character is in the present day versus how he was in the past when he was younger. And it's just this huge disparity of personality. And I was very interested in seeing how the character evolved from that state in the past to where he was in the present. Now, unfortunately, they don't really delve into, like, we don't really see that transformation, which I would have liked to have seen, but maybe that wasn't even the point of the movie. But that's something that I would have liked to have seen more. We do get one moment where the younger version of him in a flashback, we sort of see him sort of develop that personality of just being grumpy and kind of angry. But I just wish we got more of it. I thought all the characters were really good. Tom Hanks was great in it. There's this neighbor character, this Hispanic neighbor character. She was really good in it too. The movie hit me in the feels. I didn't cry. I don't cry a lot in movies. Overall, I thought it was really good. It's hard for me to think of anything really that I didn't like. Like I said, my favorite parts of the movie were those flashback scenes and the scenes with him and his wife. And then, yeah, in terms of the stuff that I didn't like, was just I would have liked to seen more of a gradual transition for his character. And then there's also this little detail as well, which I don't want to say what it is because it could be a spoiler. I haven't really seen the trailer. I don't remember what's shown in the trailer or not, but there's this thing about Tom Hanks' character that is it's brought up at the beginning of the film, and then we see the consequences of that at the very end. But by the time we get to the end, it kind of felt sudden. So I would have liked to seen more about how that affected Tom Hanks's character's life more, if that makes sense. So that it just didn't feel all that sudden because like it gets brought up once right before the ending, and then we get the payoff of that at the very, very end. But it did sort of feel like it came out of nowhere. But that's probably just me. But the main thing about the movie was the relationships between the characters. The relationship between Tom Hanks and his wife. The relationship between Tom Hanks and the neighbor. Most of them did feel like real people. Like the people that were, the characters that were more in the forefront felt like real people, but some of the background characters did feel more like just that characters. They didn't feel like real people, if that makes sense. All in all, I thought it was really good. I would give M3GAN the edge on here just because it is more of my kind of movie. I like action movies. I like thrillers. But this movie, A Man Called Otto, it's a really good, well made little film. I'm not rushing to go watch it again, but I would watch it again sometime in the future. Now, I just want to hop on over into my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2023. So, my number 10 most anticipated movie is Barbie. I know. But hear me out. When the movie was first announced a couple of weeks ago, it was supposed to be something completely different, and at that point, I really wasn't interested in it. So Amy Schumer was actually supposed to be Barbie first. Like for a good minute there, she was attached to the project, but then they decided to go in a different direction, and we got a more traditional Barbie and Margot Robbie. Like she actually looks like the doll. So I'm very interested to just see what the movie is. Like the first teaser trailer dropped a couple months ago, and it did pique my interest. It is not the kind of movie that I usually go watch in the movie theater, but Margot Robbie looks really good in it, and then we also got Ryan Gosling and Simu Liu in there as well. So I'm very excited to see what exactly the movie is supposed to be. And then my number 9 is Aquaman 2. I really like the first one, and even though this current iteration of these characters of the DC extended universe is coming to an end, that doesn't really matter to me because a movie sort of should stand on its own. It shouldn't depend on external movies in order for me to care about this one movie. So, look, the first one was really good. It's probably in my top 5 of these past DC EU films. Obviously, after Man of Steel, I think I like the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad more. But it was a very solid movie. And I'm very excited to see this next one, which will probably be the last time we see Jason Momoa as Aquaman. So I'm very interested in seeing this. Hopefully, the movie does have some sort of closure to it. Anyways, moving on, my number 8 is the Super Mario Brothers movie. That comes out in April, so it's coming up in a couple of months, pretty soon. I mean, who doesn't know what Super Mario is? I've been playing the Super Mario games ever since I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I'm very familiar with this IP and with the video games, and even to this day, like I still play Mario Kart, Mario Party, New Super Mario Brothers, and all that stuff. But I mean, dude, the movie itself, like we've gotten 2 trailers so far. We got the first teaser and then the first full trailer, and the movie looks amazing. Like just the visuals by themselves, they really hit the nail on the head on that. And we do get a sense of what the story is. One thing that I really like is that we do see Peach isn't just the damsel in distress in this movie. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the movie is like, because we're getting a lot of these based on the trailers, based on what we've seen in the trailers. We're getting a lot of like Easter eggs from the video games. So yeah. At number 7 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Yeah, I mean it's part of the MCU. We're furthering the Marvel Cinematic Universe story and the multiverse saga. What I am mainly looking forward to in this movie is seeing Kang. We saw Kang at the end of the Loki series. I personally didn't really like the show that much, but I'm very excited to see this version of Kang, because this version, I think, is going to be the version that we're going to see in Kang Dynasty. So, because we know we're going to get multiple variants of Kang, but I believe this is the main Kang version. Overall, look, I'm a huge fan of these Marvel movies, and I'm always going to be there opening weekend for anything that Kevin Feige puts out. And this is the end. This is the third Ant-Man movie. Now, Thor did get 4 movies. I don't think Ant-Man will get 4 movies, but for all intents and purposes, I believe this is the last Ant-Man movie. And Peyton Reed, the director, a couple of weeks ago also mentioned that like this movie isn't going to be like the first two where, they're just these like little basically comedies, these palate cleansers, that this is more of like an Avengers level movie. So I'm very excited to seeing how an Ant-Man movie, which like Ant-Man, Scott Lang, he is more of like a comedic character. So I'm curious to see how dark and serious this story can get. My number 6 is Dune Part 2. The first one was really good. The first one came out in like the midst of the pandemic, so it didn't make a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure this one will make more. Look, I got about halfway through the book. The book to me is kind of a hard read just because like I don't know, maybe I just have a short attention span, but I've tried reading the book over and over again and I just can't get into it. But the funny thing is, like, I did get halfway through the book, which is where the first Dune movie ends. So I literally don't know what happens after this. So when I was watching Dune Part 1 back in 2021, I did like see a lot of the things coming just because I already read that part of the book, but it literally ended the same spot that I stopped reading. So from here on out is all a clean slate. It's all to me. I don't know anything. So I'm very excited to see where the Paul Atreides character goes, and like I know some things about the book, but I don't know a lot. So to me, a lot of this is going to be a surprise, and I thought the first one was really good. At number 5, this might come to a surprise for a lot of people just because of the controversy of Ezra Miller, but The Flash. The Flash is my number 5 most anticipated movie of 2023. We hear this a lot coming from, studios and companies where they say that, oh, this movie is so good. This movie is fantastic. It's probably one of the best movies that we've ever made. And we're hearing that about The Flash. But I am so curious to see what this movie is. We're supposed to be getting a trailer at the Super Bowl. So we've gotten some footage, but we haven't gotten a full trailer yet. Now, just like Aquaman, this is part of the DCEU, so there's probably not going to be anything after this version of Flash. I mean, we're getting Supergirl, we're getting the Michael Keaton Batman, we're getting Ben Affleck back, and there have been a couple of pictures, like set photos that we've seen that have been like surfacing recently, and it all to me looks really, really cool. So that is why Flash just made the cut into my top 5. At number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, we've heard over and over again, James Gunn has been saying this is the last time that we're going to see this specific group of the Guardians. Dave Bautista came out recently saying that, yeah, he's done after this. I'm very positive that at least one of the Guardians will die. I don't think Star-Lord will die. I don't think Gamora is going to die because she just died in Infinity War. But I do think either Drax or Rocket, or Drax and Rocket, may die. I don't think Mantis is going to die either, or Nebula. But yeah, I mean, the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out in 2014. So it's literally been 9 years. It's basically a decade of these characters that we've gotten to see on screen. I mean, we saw them in the first 2 Guardians. We saw them in Infinity War. We saw them in Endgame. We saw them just recently in Thor, Love and Thunder. We saw them in the Guardians Holiday Special. So we've seen them like 6 times. This will be the 7th and last time that we see this specific group. So I'm very excited to see what James Gunn has for us. I'm a huge fan of his comic book work, his work in both Marvel and DC. And I'm very excited to see what this farewell is going to be like. Moving on to number 3. My number 3 most anticipated movie is Creed 3. I thought the first 2 were really good. The first one was, to me, a surprise because I wasn't planning on watching it. It came out in 2015, and me and my friend in high school, we went to watch The Force Awakens, and then afterwards, we snuck into this other theater to watch Creed, and I didn't even want to watch it. I didn't want to sneak in, but he was my ride, and he wanted to see it, so I sort of had to go in with him, and I was just like, okay, I'll just be on my phone the whole time and just chill here, but I got really invested into the movie, and man, that first Creed movie is so like inspirational. And then Creed 2 came in 2018. I think I like the second one more than the first one. I only saw it that one time in the theater when it came out, but I think I like it more than the first one. And then now we're getting Creed 3. Just based off of the first two movies alone, I'm excited for it, but I'm even more excited because this is Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, I think. So that is the other thing that makes me very excited about this film. And then, we've gotten a trailer for it, and the movie just looks good. And I'm excited to see where the story goes after this. And then hopefully we get more Creed movies. At number 2, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Man, that last one, Mission Impossible Fallout, was so freaking good. It was so fucking good. I went to see it like 2 or 3 times when it first came out, and this was when I was like a broke college student. I didn't have a lot of money, and I still wanted to go watch it as many times as I could. I mean, there was this featurette when I saw Avatar: The Way of Water. There was this featurette where they showed the making of this stunt where Tom Cruise rides a motorcycle off this cliff, and it's all like real. Like, we all know who Tom Cruise is. He likes to do his own stunts, and it was all like, I'm so excited to see this movie. We got that first trailer like back in May. So I'm pretty sure we're getting another trailer pretty soon, but we got that first trailer and it looks so good. I'm very much into action movies, and the Mission Impossible movies are really, really cool. And, coming off of Top Gun Maverick, Tom Cruise is on a pretty good streak. And my number one most anticipated movie of 2023 is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Man, I am one of the biggest Christopher Nolan fans out there. My favorite Christopher Nolan film is probably Memento. We see in the trailer there are going to be these black and white scenes, and we have heard from interviews that Christopher Nolan is going to be using that same like color, black and white sort of style that he used in Memento for Oppenheimer. So I'm very curious to see if he does it in the same way, or if there's like another reason for him to use that style again in this film. I mean, look, I've been a huge fan of all of Christopher Nolan's films. There isn't one that I don't like. I really like Tenet. Dunkirk was awesome. Interstellar was amazing. His Dark Knight trilogy is probably the best superhero movies ever made. You got Insomnia, Inception, The Prestige. Look, I'm just a huge fan. Like, if tickets were on sale for all of his movies that he's ever going to make in the future, I would buy them right now. I would buy tickets for whatever movie he makes after Oppenheimer. So yeah, and look, man, Cillian Murphy looks really good in the role. His acting, just based on the trailers, man, he looks amazing in it. And the cast as well. We got Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon. I mean, the cast is stacked. I can't think of every single cast member right now, but I know the cast is stacked. So adding on to that too, I mean, I'm so excited to watch this movie, and I think this will be my number one movie by the end of the year. Anyways, we come to a close of episode 1 of Screen Reel. Look, I'm not too crazy about the name. I would have preferred Popcorn Cinema, but we got to stick with Screen Reel. It'll probably grow on me. And if you stuck out to the very end of this, thank you so much. Tell all your friends. Just spread the word of the podcast, and hopefully we can grow a little community here. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back next Monday, and we'll talk about something else then. In the meantime, like I said, share, follow, leave a review if you liked it. If you didn't like it, don't leave a review just yet. Just give me a chance. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.